There are things that seem made up until life throws them in your face. And I know many people out there will doubt what I'm about to tell you today, but you know what? Doubt belongs to those who've never had their soul shaken by a miracle or a tragedy. It was supposed to be a day of celebration, champagne popping, photographers' flashes, a cake with more layers than one could ever eat. The Fontenelle mansion shone brighter than a politician's face during election season. The twins had just been born to boys, blonde like their father, delicate like their mother, and rich from their very first breath. Pedro and Tomas, identical on the outside, but oh, time would prove that inside they were opposite worlds. Their mother, Mrs. Lorena, was one of those women who looked like they walked straight out of a magazine, cold, elegant, and always 3 steps away from her children. Their father, Mr. Alvaro Fontenelle, was a tycoon in agribusiness, hands worn by farm work, but a heart as hard as his vault. A child needs time, he used to say, but his time was for business, meetings, and hunting safaris only. That's when she came into the picture, Maria de los Dolores, the nanny, a name born of sorrow, with eyes full of tenderness. She had come from the countryside to care for other people's children, while her own child, back home, was raised by his grandmother. She was the one who held the twins first. She was the one who noticed Pedro's first fever, and she was the one who heard the house's first dangerous silence. That night, the night that begins our story, the house felt strangely still. Light rain, lightning slashing the sky, and a scent in the air that foretold nothing good. Maria felt it. She always felt it. She ran up the stairs, opened the twins' bedroom door, and froze. That they were pale, cold, and not breathing. Time stopped, and her heart raced. She screamed, but no one heard her. She ran down the hallway, barefoot, carrying them both in her arms, one on each side, like a Virgin Mary holding her own miracles. She ran out screaming, tried to wake the parents. Nothing. It was as if the entire house had been hypnotized by some invisible force. And that's when she did something that no one in that mansion expected. And no, it wasn't calling an ambulance, nor running to the hospital. She ran out into the rain, with the twins in her arms, and she knocked on the door of the one person she had sworn never to see again. And that's where the story truly begins. Because what she was about to find there would change the fate not only of the children, but of the entire Fontenelle family. Forever. Do you want to know what she saw at that door? You know those promises? Made through tears, spitting on the ground, saying never again. Well, yes, that's exactly the house Maria de los Dolores went to knock on at 3 a.m, with the frozen twins in her arms, her heart about to explode, and her soul begging for a miracle. The house was old, half-ruined, paint peeling like someone tired of hiding their pain. And yet, it was the only place she could try to save the children. She knocked once, twice. The third time, the door creaked open, slowly, as if time itself was afraid of what would come next. And there he stood, him. Father Olavo. Old, gruff, the gaze as hard as a brick from an ancient church, but wisdom that chilled those who had something to hide. Maria, you know this is no longer your home, he said, without moving a single muscle in his face. She trembled, soaked. They're dying, Father, or they're already dead. I don't know, but you have to help me. The priest looked at the 2 children. Time seemed to stop once again. He said nothing. He simply turned around and left space for her to enter the old house of her childhood, where she had learned to walk, to pray, and to flee, because it was there that her father, a violent alcoholic, almost took her life one night in a fit of madness. And it was Father Olavo who had pulled her from that. She had sworn never to return, but now she was back with 2 lifeless babies in her arms. And the past returning like a hurricane of memories. Lay them here, on the table, ordered the priest. She obeyed. Her hands were shaking, her eyes full of tears. The priest took an old wooden box from the cupboard. Inside, a large rosary, a vial of consecrated oil, and a yellowed sheet with words written in Latin. Maria didn't understand any of it, but she saw it in his eyes. It wasn't just faith. It was a ritual. Do you believe? He asked, looking deep into her eyes. I believe in them more than I believe in myself, she replied, without hesitation. The priest began to pray, softly, intensely. The room seemed to change temperature. The scent of incense filled the air, and a candle, which hadn't even been lit, burst into flame on its own. Maria felt. It was as if something there was coming back. Suddenly, Tomas let out a breath, weak but real. Then Pedro, a slight movement of his fingers. She collapsed to her knees, weeping, trembling. The priest kept going, eyes closed, sweat dripping from his forehead. And then, both started crying. Softly, at the same time. Alive. Their breath had been held back, and it wasn't just any breath, said the priest. What do you mean? Maria asked, frightened. He looked at her with the eyes of someone who knows more than he should. These children carry something that should not exist in this world. And it was there that Maria understood that night. It wasn't just about saving their lives. It was about confronting a secret kept long before they were ever born. But what was this secret? And why had these babies nearly died with no apparent reason? That night, the twins' breath returned, but Maria de los Dolores' peace was gone. Father Olavo remained there, seated on the old wicker chair, eyes fixed on the candle that flickered on its own. These children weren't just sick. Maria, they'd been touched by something no one dares name. She didn't understand, or pretended not to understand, because deep down, she had felt that shadow before. But what could it be? Father, they're just babies, she insisted, her voice trembling. He replied without flinching, and that's exactly why it's easier to enter them. Pure souls are the most vulnerable. A chill ran down Maria's spine, the same feeling she'd had months ago when she saw Mrs. Lorena locked in her room, holding a wooden box, murmuring strange words. While the twins were still in her womb. At the time, she thought it was her imagination. Pregnant women talk to themselves, they said, but now everything came rushing back. They are marked, Maria, the priest said softly. This family carries an ancient curse, and the children are paying the price. Maria's eyes widened. A curse? The priest stood slowly and went to a cupboard. From it, he pulled out a yellowed envelope. Inside, an old newspaper clipping with a twisted headline in bold: Twin boys die in Fontanelle Manor, secret buried with their bodies. Year, 1973. Maria read it in disbelief. They were the children of Alvaro's grandfather, born the same day as your boys, same moon, same manor, same room. She was speechless. They say the grandmother made a pact to conceive heirs, but every pact comes at a price. Maria sat on the floor. Her heart felt like it would escape her chest. And now, that debt has fallen on Pedro and Tomas. The silence became heavy. Only the crackling candle filled the room. And there's something else, Maria, something you need to know before returning to that house, the priest said gravely. What is it? She asked, nearly breathless. He stepped closer. His heavy hand rested on her shoulder, and his words fell like a sentence. One of them bears the mark of what's to come. And when he grows up, he will choose between destroying the Fontanelle family or saving it. But which one carries the mark? And how can a simple nanny protect two children from a pack crawling through generations? The next morning, the sky was gray, as if even the sun was afraid to witness what had happened. Maria de los Dolores left the priest's house with the twins wrapped in an old blanket, her face pale and eyes red from a sleepless night. But it wasn't just exhaustion. It was a burden, the burden of a secret she never asked to carry. When she returned to the Fontanelle mansion, the staff was already in a frenzy. The housekeeper nearly fainted upon seeing the nanny emerging from the mist, babies in arms. Oh my God, Maria, what did you do? Madame Lorena woke up and the children were gone. We thought you kidnapped them, Maria said. Nothing. She walked straight past. Firmly, she climbed the stairs and brought the twins to their room. She laid them gently in their cribs with the care of a mother, even if she was just a nanny. Their breathing was calm, their faces still fragile, but a faint pink was returning to their cheeks, and that's when, while adjusting Pedro's pillow, she saw it, on his neck, a mark. Very small, almost imperceptible. It looked like a 5-pointed star. My God, she whispered, her hand covering her mouth. She turned to Tomas. Nothing. Pedro was the one marked. What the priest had said was true. One of them carried the weight of a pack he hadn't even chosen. But Maria knew it could still be changed. She went to the bathroom, washed her face, looked at herself in the mirror. Her reflection showed exhaustion, fear, and a strength she hadn't known she possessed. And then she heard footsteps. High heels. A strong perfume filled the air. Madame Lorena entered the room, her face as closed off as a Swiss vault. Where were you with my children, you lunatic? Maria turned slowly. I was saving their lives, madam. The woman's eyes widened. You've lost your mind. You're fired. I want you out of this house by the end of the week. But before the order could be enforced, little Pedro started crying. A different cry, loud, almost. Adult Lorena turned to him, and at that moment, she went pale. His neck, she whispered. It can't be. Maria saw it. This mark, she had seen it somewhere before. It wasn't a surprise to Lorena. The woman collapsed onto a chair, saying abruptly, eyes fixed on the baby. Do you know what it means? She asked, her voice broken. Maria didn't answer, but inside her, a certainty grew like ancient roots of a tree. This family knew, and for some reason, they had hidden the secret until it resurfaced in the innocent flesh of a baby. But what exactly does this mark mean? And why did Lorena seem more terrified than surprised? Madame Lorena remained motionless in the chair, her eyes glued to her son's neck as if she were seeing a flesh and blood ghost. The mark, that star disguised as a stain, was more than a sign. It was a sentence, and those who knew the Fontanelle lineage knew what it meant. Maria de los Dolores closed the bedroom door. She knew it was time to hear what had never been said. Tell me, madam, what is this mark? Why did you freeze when you saw it? She asked, her voice firm, but full of pain. Lorena hesitated. For a moment, her face crumbled, the mask of coldness slipping like makeup in the rain. That mark, it appeared on my brother when he was Pedro's age. I was just a child, but I remember my mother going mad. Maria listened to every word with full attention. She locked him in a room for weeks. She brought doctors, healers, priests. Nothing made the mark go away. And what happened to him? Maria asked. Lorena took a deep breath. She looked at the floor. Her voice came out weak, muffled. He died at 6. One night the whole house woke to screaming. They said it was a high fever, but I saw his bed catch fire with no one near it. Maria shivered, and your mother, she never spoke of it again. She buried the body, burned everything in the room, and swore the Fontanelle bloodline would be purified. But she stopped. Her hand trembled. But this curse comes back. It always comes back at certain intervals. A child is born with the mark, and something terrible happens. Maria swallowed hard. And why did you have children knowing this? I didn't want to. Alvaro forced me. He said he needed heirs, and I turned to a woman. One of those high-class witches. She gave me a ritual, a talisman. It was a wooden box, wasn't it? Maria interrupted. Lorena looked at her, startled. How do you know that? I saw it in your room before the children were born. The truth was now naked, unveiled, and no one left to hide it. The pact wasn't supposed to produce twins. There was to be only one strong heir. But something went wrong, and now one bears the mark, the other, the mirror. Maria sat beside the crib. She looked at the 2 children sleeping peacefully. They're innocent. They don't deserve to carry this cross. Lorena lowered her gaze. And for the first time, she cried. You think I deserved it? Growing up afraid to have children, to love, to wake up with the house in flames. The silence became heavy. You may not have chosen this, Madame Lorena, but now you get to choose what you'll do with this truth. At that moment, the door burst open. It was Alvaro Fontanelle, impeccably dressed, with the face of someone who commands the world, and suspicion in his eyes. What's going on here? Maria stood slowly. Your son bears the mark, and your wife knows what it means. The man looked at Lorena, then at the children. He said nothing, but his jaw clenched. And we know, when a powerful man stays silent, it means fear has arrived before the words. Alvaro stood there in the doorway, like a bronze statue. Only his eyes moved, from Maria to Lorena, from the cribs to his wife's trembling lips. The silence in the mansion was so dense you could hear the ticking of the living room clock like a war drum. A mark, a curse. What you're saying is dangerous, he said. With the icy calm of someone hiding a hurricane behind his suit, Maria stared back. There was no more room for lies. Pedro bears the same mark that appeared on your wife's brother. That star, it's a warning. Something serious is circling these children. Alvaro frowned. You speak like members of a cult. These are cheap superstitions. This house is for business, not witchcraft. Lorena stood, still trembling. Alvaro, she's right. I saw that mark when I was a child. I heard my brother scream until the ceiling of the house cracked. I never told you because I thought it was all buried. But now, it's back. The man sighed, long and deep, like swallowing a stone. No one will speak of this to anyone. Do you hear me? Maria's eyes widened in disbelief. And if it happens again, if the mark returns, if the child, he is my son. Alvaro cut her off, voice rising, cold. And my son has no curse. He carries the Fontenelle name. And that's enough. Lorena tried to protest, but he raised his hand. This is over. Not another word about it. Not in this house. Not anywhere. Maria, you stay. But one more word about this. You're out of my life. Understood. Maria swallowed hard. She knew that disobeying meant leaving, but obeying meant staying silent in the face of danger. Yes, sir, she answered, but inside, her soul screamed. That night, the mansion fell into silence. Servants whispered in the halls, but none dared to ask questions. In the twins' room, Maria kept watch like a sentinel, sitting in the rocking chair, eyes wide open, ears alert. Until Pedro stirred. And whispered something. Yes, he whispered, though he didn't even know how to speak yet. Fire. Maria froze. She approached the crib, stared. His eyes were closed, but his mouth moved. Fire. Daddy, hide. Her heart nearly dropped from her chest. A baby, whispering words, and not just any words. Fire. Daddy, hide. What was Alvaro hiding? The next morning, Maria went to the staff quarters. The place where the nanny could rest during her breaks. She opened an old drawer, pulled out a notebook, and began to write everything down. Date, time, phrases, signs. She would document everything, because if no one wanted to listen, she would write it. And one day, when the world wanted to know, the truth would be there. But what did Pedro's words really mean? And what was Alvaro hiding that even his own son could sense? 3 days passed since that night. The talk of the mark was swept under the mansion's thickest rug. But silence doesn't extinguish what the soul feels. Maria kept observing. Pedro and Tomas slept, drank their milk, smiled. Everything seemed normal, but only those who watch day and night perceive what hides in the details. Pedro would wake drenched in cold sweat. Tomas laughed in the middle of the night, eyes fixed on an empty ceiling, and the two never cried at the same time. It was as if one felt what the other concealed. That afternoon, Maria decided to do what she shouldn't. She went to Alvaro's office. The place was dark, smelling of leather, expensive whiskey, and unfinished business. On the walls, portraits of family lineage, uncles, grandfathers, founders, colonels, all with the same expression of those who command more than they pray. She knew if she were caught, she'd be fired. But she needed to know. She started searching drawers, files, hollow books. Until, in a false bottom of a cabinet, she found a box. Yes, another box, similar to the one she had seen in Lorena's bedroom months earlier, except this one had a symbol carved on the lid, the same star that now lived on Pedro's neck. She nearly dropped it. She opened it carefully. Inside, a handful of yellowed papers with inscriptions in Latin, a lock of hair wrapped tightly, and an old photo. Very old, a couple. And in their arms, a baby. On the back of the photo, handwritten, for the heir to bring strength and fortune. Burning the blood of the lineage is the price. Maria stepped back. Almost tripped. Sacrifice lineage? The words the baby had uttered now made total sense. Fire, Daddy, hide. Alvaro knew. He knew the mark existed. He knew what it demanded. And more than that, he knew the pack's price had perhaps already been paid long ago. But now it returned, with interest. That night, Maria couldn't sleep. Sitting on the floor in the children's room, she prayed softly, clutching her mother's rosary. The candle she used to read flickered, even with no draft, and at 3 in the morning, Pedro opened his eyes. He didn't cry. He didn't smile. He simply raised his arm and pointed to the window. There, he whispered. Maria slowly turned her head. There, in the garden, a figure stood still. In a dark suit. It looked like Alvaro himself, but it didn't move. Its eyes fixed on the room. Maria blinked. The figure was gone. She rushed to the window. Nothing. Only the wind shaking the treetops. But on the glass, there was a mark, a drawing, traced as if by a child's finger, a star, the same one. Again. Maria dropped to her knees. She understood. The pact wasn't asleep. It was active, and it was lurking around the twins' room, waiting for the moment to claim what it was owed. But would it be Pedro who was claimed, or Tomas who'd pay the price? And who was that figure in the garden? A vision, a warning, or something far darker? That apparition in the garden shook Maria like nothing ever had. She had seen many things in life: poverty, difficult births, forgotten children. But this was a different kind of fear, an ancestral fear. The kind you don't learn, you inherit. The next day, Maria decided she would wait no more, not for her employer's permission, nor her mistress's threats. The truth had to come out, or at least be heard. So she did the unthinkable. She went to the police station. She arrived early, with her notebook in her bag, red eyes and a firm voice. She asked to speak with the oldest officer, a certain Elias, a grumpy man, but known for his sense of justice. "I'm here because 2 children are in danger. And it's not a normal danger. It's a family matter that hides secrets under rugs for generations." The officer's eyes widened in surprise. "You're talking about the Fontanelles?" "Yes, and I work for them. I'm the nanny." She handed him the notebook, the notes, the dates, even a photo of the box, which she had secretly taken in Alvaro's office. And what she heard in response was what hurt her the most. "My dear, these are just superstitions. And going after that family is asking to vanish without a trace. I can't do anything with this. And when it's too late, when those children are found dead like in 73, the man went silent, but his eyes betrayed him. He knew something was wrong in that mansion. But the Fontanelle name had more power than the law in the small town. Maria left, heart in pieces. But it was in front of the station that something unexpected happened. A woman, leaning against an old car, signaled to her. "You're the nanny of the twins?" she asked. Maria jumped. "Who are you?" The woman extended her hand. "My name is Juana. I worked for the Fontanelles in 1992. I cared for another baby born there, and he also died with a mark on his neck." Maria's eyes widened in terror. No one ever talked about that. Juana nodded. "They never do. They erase, they bury, they invent illnesses. But I remember that child, and I remember the fire. They sat on a bench in the square." Juana told her everything. The baby was born strong, healthy. At 3 months, a spot appeared on his neck, a star. The family panicked. They locked him up for days, then claimed he died of heart problems. But I saw him. He trembled at night. He cried like he was seeing things, until one night, the crib caught fire by itself, and then they made everything disappear. Maria trembled. "They're repeating the same pattern." Juana took her hand. "You have to get those children out of there before the next ritual begins. And if the father stops me, then face him. Otherwise, there'll be another old photo, another box, and another erased name in the lineage. Will Maria manage to protect the twins before history repeats itself? Or will she become just another name forgotten in the Fontanelle dust?" That night, Maria returned to the mansion, changed. Her steps were the same, but her eyes were different. No longer a nanny's gaze, but that of an adoptive mother. A lioness unchained. Someone who had seen the end approaching and decided the beginning must change. She walked through the corridors without speaking to anyone, went straight up to the twins' room, and stood there, watching them. Pedro slept with his fist clenched. Tomas, mouth slightly open, murmured softly in his dreams. And in that peaceful silence, she made her decision. She would get the children out of here, even in secret, even with only what she could carry in her arms. Because waiting for permission from someone who hides corpses is like asking for a blessing from someone who builds a church on a cemetery. Maria spent the rest of the night preparing what she could: bottles, clothes, documents, everything that fit in an old backpack. At 5 in the morning, still dark outside, she wrapped the twins in thick blankets. Tomas woke with a little cry. Pedro did not. He remained silent, but his eyes were open, fixed on the door. As if he already knew. She whispered, "We're leaving, my loves, and no one will erase you." She went down the service stairs, the ones used by employees, but when she got to the back door, she stopped. The door was locked with a padlock, and it hadn't been the day before. She looked back, frightened, and then she heard it. "Looking for freedom, Maria." The voice came from the shadows. Alvaro, in his usual suit, but his eyes darker than ever. Eyes that didn't blink. "You locked the exit?" she asked, breathless. "You know too much. And now, you want to take what belongs to me. They're not things, they're children. They're your sons." Alvaro stepped toward her slowly. They are heirs, and heirs fulfill their destiny, whatever the price, even if that means their lives. He smiled. Coldly, the bloodline demands sacrifice. It always has. My grandfather burned one. My father faked an accident. Me, I'm just being consistent. Maria stepped back. The children began to cry. Their cries echoed off the tiles like a call for help. And then, something happened. Tomas stopped crying, and Pedro began trembling in her arms. His eyes changed. They became glassy, and his voice, yes, his voice, spoke again. Run, Maria. She nearly dropped them. Pedro had spoken clearly in an adult voice. Alvaro turned pale. He's awakening, he murmured. And then Maria ran. She didn't think. She ran. She climbed, turned, crossed the kitchen, passed through the laundry room, and remembered the little bathroom window, small, but with no lock. With effort, she passed the children through first. Then herself. She fell to the other side, injured her leg, but got up. She ran along the mansion, crossed the lawn, jumped the small fence, and disappeared into the darkness of a morning not yet born. She had escaped, with two babies in her arms. With a mark on one's neck, and with a destiny that now belonged to her. Maria ran until her legs could no longer carry her. The wet asphalt of the road sliced her feet like blades, but the pain was less than the fear, and the fear less than her instinct. With Pedro on one side and Tomas on the other, wrapped in blankets, she crossed 3 streets until she found shelter at an old abandoned bus stop. There, she sat. Breathless. Her mind racing for a plan, any plan. She pulled her old phone from her bag. No signal. Of course, it had probably already been blocked. Alvaro never left loose ends. She looked at the children. Both were asleep now. Pedro's face was rosy, but his hands were cold. Tomas mumbled in his sleep, like he was dreaming. Maria kissed their foreheads. Calm down, my loves. I'll find a way. And then she remembered Father Olavo, the only one who had known the story from the beginning, the only one who could help now. But he lived far away, in the rural zone, down a dirt road, between forest and Miracle. Without thinking, she grabbed the children and walked to the bus station. Once there, she bought a ticket with her last few coins. She covered her face with a scarf and boarded the bus as if saying goodbye to her own identity. 3 hours later, she arrived in front of the old wooden gate with peeling paint, chickens clucking in the back. She knocked twice. The priest opened the door with the look of someone who was already expecting her. You ran, and you brought them with you. Maria burst into tears. They were going to kill them, Father. Alvaro, he knows about the mark. He accepts the pact. He was going to let it happen. The priest nodded. He let them in, shut the gate with a firm slam, like closing an old book that insists on writing itself. Inside the living room, the fireplace was lit. The smell of rosemary and burning wood filled the air, and time seemed to have stepped back a century. Father, what do I do now? I can't go back. But they're not guilty. They just want to live. The priest sat down, took a glass of water, and looked at the children. The mark is stronger. It moves. It already speaks. Pedro, he told me to run, with words, clearly, with empty eyes. The priest closed his eyes for a moment. When the soul of the mark awakens, it communicates. It tries to warn, to help, or to frighten. But he wants to help, doesn't he? He doesn't want to hurt anyone. Not yet. But that depends on how the world treats him. Maria hugged Pedro tighter. Then the choice is ours. Yes, but it won't be easy. The Fontanelles will look for you, hunt you, and try to take the children back. The mark belongs to them, according to them, and to preserve the lineage, they're capable of anything. Let them come, Maria replied, standing, her eyes full of tears, but determined. I don't share their blood, but I have a heart, and as long as it beats, they won't touch them. The priest smiled for the first time in years. Then it's time to prepare, because the war that's coming won't be fought with courage alone. You'll need faith, and truth. Astor's father Olavo led Maria and the twins to the old shed at the back of the property. There, among dusty tools and saint statues cracked by time, was something few knew, a hidden room, sealed since the 1980s. Here, this is where your mother once hid, the priest said, pushing aside a camouflage wall with effort. When she fled your father. Do you remember? Maria shivered. It was like entering the womb of her own story. Waterland walls, an iron bed, an improvised altar with candles, and an old journal on the dresser. She touched the journal. Was it hers? Yes. And now, it's yours. That's where she spent the night. She read every page, discovered secrets she never imagined. Her mother also had visions when she was young. She had also seen marks. She had also felt the call of fire, but chose to flee. Maria understood that her story with the Fontanelles was older than she thought. The blood wasn't the same, but the pain was too similar to be coincidence. The next morning, the priest called her to the barn. We'll begin preparing for what's coming. He handed her a talisman made of braided leather, with a fragment of red stone in the center. It was made by someone who survived the mark, a woman who resisted. Her name was Adalgisa. She died at 97. Never surrendered. Will this protect Pedro? Maria asked. It will protect you, because if you fall, he falls with you. The days passed in silence, in hiding. The priest taught Maria protective prayers, how to purify the air, how to read symbols. But he also taught her how to resist fear. The mark feeds on our weakness. If you panic, it grows. Pedro was changing. He was no longer just a baby. There was something in his gaze, a premature awareness, an ancient knowledge. Tomas remained light, carefree, as if he felt nothing. But Pedro observed. At one of those nights, Maria woke to find him, sitting in the crib. Yes, sitting. Unaided. And speaking. The fire is coming, Mommy. She dropped to her knees, not out of fear, but because he had said, Mommy. Pedro had never called anyone that before. And in that word, there was more than affection. There was a plea, a warning. The priest came running. He saw the scene and confirmed, the mark is fully awake. He's now between two worlds, and the time we have is short. The next day, a note appeared stuck to the priest's gate, written in red ink. No one escapes the blood. The earth claims what was promised. A.F. Alvaro Fontanelle had found them. The note on the priest's gate burned like red-hot iron in Maria's hand. Alvaro had found them. And when a man like him finds you, he doesn't bring flowers. He brings a blade. The priest tried to stay calm, but Maria saw panic creep into his eyes. It was fear, yes, but also the exhaustion of someone who had fought evil before and saw it return, hungrier. He knows where we are, Maria said. What do we do now, Father? Now we hold the soul and prepare the body, because the war is here. She returned to the room where Pedro slept with Tomas, but as she approached the crib, her heart nearly stopped. Pedro was standing, eyes closed, and his skin glowed. Yes, it glowed. A faint red light radiated from his chest, and the mark on his neck burned like a branding iron. Pedro, she whispered. He slowly opened his eyes. Black eyes. No iris. No pupils. And the voice, once again, that of an adult. He's coming, and he wants the mirror. Maria stepped back. The mirror. Tomas? The child fainted instantly. Tomas woke with a start, crying. Maria ran to them, holding both tightly in her arms. That's when the old phone rang, the one that never rang. The priest answered. He was silent, then said only 3 words. They're here. Outside, the black cars, tinted windows. Doors opening slowly, men in suits. Silent, and among them, Alvaro, a book in his hand. Old, leather-bound. Maria stepped onto the porch, rosary wrapped around her wrist, the children in her arms. You will not touch them, she shouted. Alvaro raised the book. This is the testament of Ignacio Fontanelle, founder of our bloodline. It states clearly, the blood of the mark belongs to the root, and the root must drink the fruit. This is madness. This is tradition, the law of the family. Do you think the empire I built was made of money alone? I sold the soul of the bloodline, and this is the price. Then pay with your own life, not theirs. Alvaro smiled coldly. I've already paid. Each generation offers one. Sacrifices one. My father gave my brother. I gave my firstborn. But 2 were born. And now I must choose. Maria's legs buckled. You're going to kill one of them. No. The pact doesn't demand death. It demands fusion. It wants the spirit of the bloodline to inhabit the chosen one, and the other becomes the offering. The priest came out holding a wooden cross. You will not touch these children. I invoke, in the name of God. Silence, old fool. Alvaro interrupted. You already broke your vow once. Don't dare break it again. Maria looked at the priest. What is he talking about? The old man lowered his gaze. His hands trembled. Alvaro finished. Father Olavo is the illegitimate son of Ignacio Fontanelle. He fled the bloodline, but he knows the pact is real, and he knows the time has come to pay what he owes. And now, who's telling the truth? Is the priest a traitor or a prisoner? And who is the true chosen one, Pedro or Tomas? Maria felt the world crumble beneath her feet. The priest, the illegitimate son of Ignacio Fontanelle? It was like discovering that the only bridge to escape also led straight to the abyss. She looked at the old man, eyes full of tears. Is it true? Father, you are part of this. He lowered his head, and for the first time in this whole story, he cried. It's true, my mother was a maid in the big house. She got pregnant by him, by Ignacio. They hid me, raised me far away, but never far enough. Alvaro stepped forward with the book in hand, his voice like a final sentence. The bloodline that runs shall pay double. The renegade heir shall carry twice the mark. Did you really think you could break the cycle, Olavo? The twins were born because of you. Maria felt the weight of that revelation on her back. So Pedro and Tomas were born to pay your debt. The priest looked her straight in the eyes. No, they were born to break the cycle. How? Because now someone loves them without expecting anything in return, and the pact doesn't survive true love. Alvaro burst out laughing. Those are poems from a devout fool. You think love protects against what was sealed by blood and soil. Maria stepped closer to him. Without fear, Pedro in one arm, Tomas in the other. You may have money, power. You might even buy the silence of the police. But you don't know what it's like to look at a child and feel the weight of their life in your arms. You don't have a heart, Alvaro. You have a name, and a name doesn't create a soul. Alvaro pulled a dagger from his belt. Let's see if love survives the blade. But before he could move forward, Pedro, in Maria's arms, opened his eyes once again. But this time, there was light. Literally, a red aura emerged from his body. Tomas was enveloped too, and Maria fell to her knees, eyes blinded by the radiance. Alvaro stepped back. What is this? The priest stood tall despite his trembling. It's the choice. The mark has awakened, and it chose the side of the one who does not carry Fontanelle blood, the one who protects, not out of duty, but out of love. The light enveloped Maria and the children. Then a strong wind blew. The priest's candles flared up. The book fell from Alvaro's hands and disintegrated on its own. The dagger melted. Alvaro screamed. The pact cannot be broken. But it was too late. The earth trembled. The sky darkened for a few seconds, and then silence. With the light faded, Alvaro lay on the ground, unconscious. His face aged, his eyes white. Maria stood, the twins still in her arms, the priest kneeling, whispering prayer softly, and there, on that soil of mud and memory, the Fontanelle bloodline suffered its first true defeat. Alvaro's body was taken away in the priest's old pickup truck. Still unconscious, he no longer spoke, no longer moved, but he was breathing. He's not dead, Maria asked. The priest shook his head. No, but the soul he carried. The pact was broken, and with it, the awareness of the one who fed it. They left him at the entrance of a hospital, with a note, name, Alvaro Fontanelle, Agnes, inner emptiness treatment, none, and they left. Maria, the priest, and the children left that town for good. They took a road with no return. She found a modest place in another region, a village where no one knew her name. There, she became a school teacher and raised Pedro and Tomas as her own sons. But the mark, did it disappear? No, the mark remained on Pedro's neck. It sometimes glowed under the moonlight, but it no longer burned. It no longer demanded. It was as if it were asleep. Or watching. Tomas grew up. Happy, lively, curious. Pedro was quiet but intense. He learned quickly, spoke little, but his words carried weight. One day, at the age of 5, while they played in the garden, Pedro approached Maria and asked, Mom, is it true that people can sell their children? She knelt down, heart heavy. It's true, but that's not what I did. I bought you with my fear, but I saved you with my love. He smiled, then said, Then I give your love back to you, and I'm staying. She broke down in tears, and at that moment, the mark on his neck vanished. Completely. As if it had never existed. But what no one knew, was that very night, on the wall of the little school where she taught, someone had carved, with a fingernail, "The fire sleeps, but IT still dreams." Years passed. Pedro and Tomas grew up like ordinary brothers. But Maria knew, she saw, Pedro had something more. He knew things he had never been taught. He looked at people as if he were reading them. One day, at age 13, he came to her in the kitchen. "Mom, I remember." "You remember what?" "My son. Him, the man in the suit, the box. I remember being the people and choosing to be me." Maria's legs trembled, but he continued, "I wasn't chosen. I chose. I don't want to inherit secrets. I want to write truths." She embraced him tightly, and at that moment, a lightning bolt struck the tree at the back of the garden. It split in two, but no one was hurt. The priest, now an old man, watched everything from a distance. He knew that boy was no ordinary boy, but he wasn't a threat either. He was a repair, a response. At the age of 20, Pedro disappeared from the little village. He left without warning. No letter. No goodbye. But 5 years later, a rumor spread in the south of the country. A young man was writing strange books, speaking of things only the old ones remembered. And one of his books had this title, "The Fire Pact," signed Pedro and in the dedication, "To the one who saved me, and to the one who taught me that running away is not shameful, but a chance." No one ever knew where he was exactly, but those who read his words said that sometimes the pages felt warm to the touch, as if the fire hadn't left, but had become a story. And Maria, she lived to be 97 in peace. And on her tombstone, it didn't say Nanny, nor mother, but simply the one who loved enough to break the pact.